The Call of the Wild is, if you can get past the creepy-ish CGI dog, surprisingly heartfelt and actually a pretty good film. The Call of the Wild stars Harrison Ford as a semi-cantankerous old man, along with a CGI St.Bernard mix named Buck. The film, it is a little creepy in that all of the animals are CGI, so it does give it kind of this odd little sense to it when you're watching it. Certainly at first, the animals seem out of place with the environment that they're bouncing through. And if you can get over that, then it actually makes the film a lot better, especially once Harrison Ford actually shows up on screen, because he's doing a voiceover kind of narrating the life of Buck throughout the entirety of the film. But what happens is Buck is basically living a jovial life out in California. He's stolen, put on a ship, and sent up towards the Yukon, where he's going to be forced into kind of like sled dog work. While Buck is going to be sold, he picks up a harmonica and runs it back to Harrison Ford's character, who is this old wilderness mountain kind of man who's since lost his son, got divorced from his wife, so he's basically kind of just going up in the area to kind of live and be at peace with himself. So on and so forth with that. Well, Buck then becomes a sled dog for Perot and Francois, who basically deliver mail up and down the Yukon. So there's some cool little scenes where they're driving the sled along, delivering the mail. Buck ends up having to assert his dominance, becomes the pack leader, gains the respect of Francois, Perot, along with the other sled dogs, before eventually finally being sold after the mail service shuts down, or the carrier service shuts down in the Yukon. So Perot's got to get rid of those dogs. He gets rid of them. Buck is then bought by somebody who's basically just this nasty man who forces him and the other dogs to kind of haul a bunch of equipment in unsafe weather. There's a scene where Harrison Ford's character shows up and basically tells this guy that shows them what's wrong, that the sled's actually iced in, you need to break it off, and then he kind of has like a warming of his heart, so to speak, and then he goes after Hal with the various dogs along with Buck to try to stop him, because he knows that them going off at this certain time of the year is bad for the dogs, and that the ice is melting and they've got to cross a couple rivers. A lot of the area will be swollen with water and potentially end up dangerous. So he goes and ends up rescuing Buck, and Buck basically becomes his kind of pal or buddy for a little while. They spend some time at his old cabin, and there's a couple cute moments where Buck has taken the whiskey bottle or whatever from him, and then the guy named Hal shows up, tells it's all gone, he lost everything, all the dogs are gone, and kind of starts to fight with Harrison Ford's character before Buck intervenes and breaks them apart. Well, at this point, then Harrison Ford and Buck go off into the wild or the wilderness, out beyond any normal outpost or where anybody else is living, and by happenstance, they end up stumbling upon an old cabin in this little valley next to kind of like a little small river, creek. And what happens is Buck ends up kind of living there, going off to the wild, meeting a wolf pack, while Harrison Ford's character just, pants for gold into finding a whole bunch of gold, but he's enjoying themselves. Both of them are just trying to, to live and be out there. And there comes a cute moment where like Buck saves another wolf, and then he's accepted by the wolf pack, and then he's kind of got to make a decision if he's going to live or go, stay there with Harrison Ford's character, go off to the woods with the wolves and kind of, embrace the call of the wild. Well, at that point, it's when the movie gets a little bit dark, because Hal shows back up, has a fight with Harrison Ford's character, shoots him once, and then Buck comes to the rescue, of course, saving Harrison Ford, knocking the other guy into a cabin that's on fire, starts to burn down. But Harrison Ford is mortally wounded at this instance, and what happens is basically he tells Buck, you're home, go off into the wild. It's a little more voiceover narration as you see that Buck goes off, finds his wolf out there, his lady wolf out there. They have a couple kids. Buck ends up becoming leader of the pack. And it's kind of a touching movie. There's a few scenes in it when Harrison Ford does a really good job in terms of his acting. He doesn't seem to be doing like a called in or phoned in performance. He seems to really be enjoying doing this, which of course, he's kind of a gruff old man that spends his time up in Montana throwing hay around on a ranch. So of course this is cool to him to basically be out in the woods or the wild by himself, just, throwing throwing stuff around, doing whatever. So I think he really liked that concept of the film, or that part of the film. So his performance kind of shows through it. It is kind of a good performance from him, more so than some of his recent just I'm here performances that he gives, and it's a pretty good film. Like I said, if it's not the greatest film that's out there, but it's an okay film. If you got some time, you got to go check it out. It's pretty short, like an hour and 40 minutes or so, if that, maybe even like an hour and 30 minutes. But it's one of those ones that didn't do very well at the box office because the marketing was really bad. And I think the CGI kind of was a little off-putting. But still, if you got some time, I would say give it a watch. It's a pretty decent kids flick. It's one that'll, it's definitely something that's wholesome entertainment, so to speak, to show them. So it's not any issues or any blood or gore or anything like that. It's all handled really tastefully, whatever kind of action or conflict that they have. So other than that, feel free to like, subscribe, share, and have a good day.